What's going on, everybody? It's Jason from Auto City Imports, and today you can see we've done a lot of work to our vehicle here. Last time you saw it, it was just straight silver. Now we've got a full vinyl wrap in the plum purple from 3M. Lots of carbon fiber parts from Auto Kits X and VIS. We put some Cosmos Racing wheels on it, and we have the D2 air ride. So we've done a lot of work to this thing, and today we're going to be doing a little bit more. We've recently partnered with Boosted Fabrication, and we are bringing you new performance mounts for your transmission and your motor. So instead of just replacing bushings, you can get all brand new performance mounts. Today we're going to be showing you how to do the hydraulic mount replacement for the GT V6. Now this is a full replacement for that hydraulic mount. It'll reduce the weight in your overall vehicle as well as make it stronger as it's made out of a chromium alloy. These are available on our website, autocityimports.com, and the link will be in the description below. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the area that we're going to be working on. We're going to be replacing this entire hydraulic mount right here. In order to do that, basically all you're going to need is a 17mm socket, a 14mm socket, a 10mm socket, and then some extensions and ratchets, of course. Now, the process of removing this, you have this support bar that comes up here and connects down here to this actual mount. These are both 14 mils, so you're going to want to take this bar off first. That will allow us to access some of the bolts below. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let me get my 14 mil with my extension here, and get on here and go ahead and take this off. Now I would suggest PB blastering these maybe the night before you get started, just to ensure that they break loose. This engine bay that we have here is in fair condition, does have some rust and whatnot in it. Also, while I'm doing this, keep in mind that there is a ground on this that you're going to have to move, which you may have to extend. My ground, I actually found, is frayed and no longer grounded. So I'm going to have to make a whole new line for mine here. Now, once you get this second 14mm bolt out from the bottom, this should very easily just come out, as you can see there. Now, just for reference, you can see here there's a slot. The slotted end goes on the bottom, just so you guys know. Alrighty, and now we're on. What that did is it revealed 3 17 mils down here. Now, 2 of the 17s are nuts that are on studs, and the third one in the middle is actually a bolt that goes down. So we're gonna have to loosen those up next. So because of the placement of these, I'm going to show you, there's the 10 mil next to the 17mm nut on the stud, and then you can see the 17 mil right behind it there, which is the bolt, next to the 14 mil that we just took out, which is where you can see that clear silver. And then of course a little behind it there, you can see the other 17mm stud. So those are the 3 that we're going to be removing next. It's very hard to see when I zoom out, which I'll show you, which is why I'm showing you before I zoom out. Because of the way that the lighting is, it kind of puts it into the dark. But that is the next step. So I'm going to lock it down here and then get my 17 mil and go ahead and get these off. Now, I don't know if these are going to take the stud all the way out or if it's going to actually unscrew from the stud, and that's something that we'll just have to figure out. With these cars, it can be one way or the other. We don't really know. Now, I've already loosened this up before I started the video. You may need a breaker bar on these to get them to release the first time. And it looks like it did not remove the stud, which is fine on this instance, because we should be able to lift this up out of it the way that we are installing this mount here. So this came off, all good to go. I'm gonna do the other nut now. Hear it struggling a little bit there. And that's just all the corrosion that's on these as we take them off. So keep in mind that this one is probably going to be a little hot based on how much friction there was trying to get this one off. Now I think we should be, yep, we are loose. That's not too bad. A little warm, but not too bad. All right, so now we're gonna go for this middle one here. And again, I may have to put in my breaker bar on this. And what I do for my breaker bar, at least what worked for the other two, is I just upgraded to a 1/2-inch bar that's a little bigger. Yep, and that did it. Give it a full few pulls. With that, you can already see the engine starting to drop a little bit there. And now, before we get too far, we're gonna wanna support that engine from underneath. So I'm gonna get a jack underneath there, and I just wanted to make sure it loosened up before I did that. So it's gonna drop the engine a little bit. It will be held in by the other mounts, so it's not a huge deal, but to relieve the pressure from this to make sure that it doesn't bind and we can't get it out, we're gonna support that engine just a little bit from underneath. Now you can see here, there's a 14mm bolt here. There is one straight down there, and there's one in the back here that you can't really see, but it's basically straight down in between our power steering reservoir and our actual hydraulic mount. There is a little notch cut out of this hydraulic mount so you can get an extension down there and take that 14mm out. Now once you do that, I'm going to put this camera back down. I'll probably have to refocus it where I want it. What we're going to want to do here, and it looks like that's pretty good there, what we're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab it right here, be careful for your AC lines and whatnot, and you're going to want to have to pull it towards you. And that's going to release it from the engine, get it over the studs, and then you have to work it around here too. So you kind of have to wiggle this thing around, get it over the studs, turn it a little bit, bring it down, and then you can just wiggle it right out, okay? So here, let me make sure I got this in the shot. Nope, I don't. Here is the whole huge hydraulic mount that we're removing from the engine, and we're reinstalling the new mount. All right, so what we've done, now that we've got the old mount out, usually the video would just say, put the new one in, but this is a lot more trickier than that. So much so that it took me a day to figure out how to get this thing in there. So this video is going to be very helpful for this part. As you can see, this is a two-piece system here. You have this bracket and then you have this bracket here. Both of them labeled with the Boosted Fabrication logo. You can see here that we've put it on the studs, and then you have the screw that goes down and it's just kind of sitting there. You have to keep everything loose, and what you have to do is you have to kind of get everything sort of lined up, and then you have to get this bolt through. But you only put it just enough that it's barely peeking out the other side, and I'm going to try to show you that here. So over here, see how it's barely peeking out this side? It's right here, barely peeking out the side, because you still have to tighten down the bolt underneath. And if this is all the way out, you can't get to this bolt. So once you get everything loose, nothing's even remotely tightened down. There's a lot of bolts that still aren't in. You can see the other forward bolt here that's just sitting there, not even close to being started. And then of course the bolt up here a little more. You can't really see it, but the hole's right here. That'll go in a little bit. But the first thing we want to do, once we get all of this kind of roughed in and in place, after you get this bolt set through the fulcrum, is you want to tighten down this back bolt here. Again, that's a 14mm, and you're going to have to wiggle it around a little bit to figure it out, but we're going to get them all started on the bottom here. So this one, and this one before we tighten anything down, because you are gonna have to finagle it a little bit until you get it in the right spot. Get them all started, and then we'll tighten them down to factory spec. Get this camera back over here. I apologize, I'm doing this myself today. I don't have a cameraman. So I'm just gonna get this set up right here. And then grab my 14 with this. I need to see the hole here, so we're a little off. And basically, you're just gonna have to keep monkeying this thing around until you can get it where it needs to go. And keep in mind that you still have the jack underneath the air conditioning compressor, so you may have to give it a little bit more of a push up to get it more level where it's supposed to be, which will help you get these lined up. I may have to do it again here. We're just barely off here. I'm going to take this one out as well, just to make sure it's not hindering me from being able to get that back one in. Put it up here for now, because we're just a little contorted the wrong way here. And again, it's just tedious work trying to figure out exactly where we need to get this. It's going to take some time, but you'll get it. I've just noticed how tedious it is to get a two-piece mount in where a one-piece existed. So I'm going to finagle with this a little bit more. And once I get them all started, I'll go on to the next step. All right, so I did get this lined up. Basically, it just took moving the engine up continuously, kind of, and then lowering it a little bit, raising it up, trying to figure out exactly where it needed to be to get all of these lined up. And what I've done is I've tightened down the back one, which is the one that you can't access, and I've started to push this bolt through. Now remember to put this washer on here when you put this bolt through, and you'll be good to go. And then on the other side, you have another washer and a nylon locking nut. So you're going to want to get this on, and you don't have to push it all the way through. You need room to be able to get this nut threaded, and then of course put a wrench on it. So I've got that started here. Now you don't have to push this all the way through. It may be very hard to do that anyway, but you don't want to do that because you want to have room to get this on there. I got that all the way down to the threads now. And then just put an open end wrench on here, probably another one on here. They're both 3/4 for your bolt that you'll receive in the set. They are grade 8, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. Go ahead and make sure that you get this bolt started as well. Looks like we're just barely off camera there. I'm gonna scooch it up just a tiny bit, but yeah, this bolt right at the top of the frame here, make sure you get that one just barely threaded by hand as well. That way everything's lined up that needs to be. So we're gonna go ahead, and we did start this one by hand as well. So everything's lined up, has a couple threads in it. We're gonna go ahead and tighten down this guy. That way we can access the front one, and then we're gonna tighten everything down to factory spec. We can even put these on now as well. And we're gonna go ahead and tighten everything down, and then we'll be back for the very last steps. All right, we are back, and we got everything tightened down nice and easy. So we used a 3/4 inch on both sides. We used an open end on this side, then we had a ratcheting one on this side. Just cranked it down. It doesn't have to be super, super tight, because you do want a little bit of flex in there. You don't want to smush the bushing here, so it can have a little bit of flex. But once we got this tightened, we were able to access this bolt. Again, 14mm, and then a 14mm up here. Tighten all this down. These are 17, these 3 up here. Tighten all the way on these to factory spec. Then you release the engine from the jack, and after you do that, just check the torque again, because it may loosen up a little bit depending on where your engine was to line it all up. And the last step is to put your bracket back in, which should line up perfectly. Again, this just goes on the lower intake manifold here, and then lines up to the new mounting place on the boosted fabrication bracket. These are, again, 14 millimeters here. Let's go ahead and get these both started. By hand, just like that. Go ahead and I'm gonna loosen this up, move it up just a little bit so you can see where I'm working here. Of course, the AC hose is in the way, but lower is here, upper is right back here. Again, 14 millimeter for this guy. Get my 17 off there because I was just working with that. Got them started by hand. Tighten down factory spec. If you guys need a factory service manual for that, I have them. Obviously, I'm not doing it right now, but I'll do it after the video with my torque wrench, which is behind me here. Just wanted to show you guys how to get this done. So it is a little bit of a pain to line up. Of course, you just gotta finagle with everything, keep everything really loose, make sure you do it in the order that I told you. Otherwise, you're gonna have a real big pain in the butt trying to get it all situated where it should go. But there we go, everything is in. I'll go ahead and move this again to show you guys what we got going on here. Zoom in a little bit. But now you have your boosted fabrication hydraulic replacement. Again, this is a weight reduction as well as an upgrade because it is stronger based on the material it's made out of. And just to show you guys, that is what we took out and replaced. So a little prettier as well. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.